The stars had always been distant jewels in humanity's sky, unreachable and mysterious. For millennia, humans gazed upward and wondered if they were alone in the vast ocean of space. The answer came on a Tuesday morning when the heavens themselves seemed to crack open, and the universe revealed its terrible truth. Humanity was not alone, and their new neighbors had come with fire and conquest in their hearts. Captain Devon Thrace stood on the observation deck of the orbital station Prometheus, watching Earth rotate peacefully below. The blues and greens of his homeworld had never looked more beautiful, more fragile. His coffee floated in its magnetic cup beside him, forgotten as warning klaxons suddenly shattered the morning calm. The sensor array had detected something impossible. 50,000 objects had just materialized at the edge of the solar system, and they were accelerating toward Earth at speeds that defied every law of physics humanity understood. Within hours, the United Earth Command had assembled its crisis team. General Patricia Okonkwo, a veteran of 3 continental conflicts, stared at the tactical display with the same expression she had worn before every major battle. Cold, calculating, ready. Beside her, Dr. Yuki Tanaka frantically analyzed the data streaming from deep space probes, his fingers dancing across holographic keyboards as sweat beaded on his forehead. The readings made no sense. The approaching fleet used technology that shouldn't exist, bending space-time itself to cross distances that should take years in mere hours. The aliens made contact when their lead ships reached Mars orbit. The transmission came through every communication device on Earth simultaneously. Television screens, radio broadcasts, mobile phones, even the displays in children's toys all showed the same image. A being stood before them, tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle formation regarded humanity with something approaching pity. Behind the figure, thousands of warships hung in space like a swarm of metal predators. The being called itself High Chancellor Vorum of the Celestial Imperium. Its voice was musical, almost hypnotic, as it delivered humanity's death sentence with the casual indifference of someone discussing the weather. Inhabitants of the 3rd planet, your world has been selected for integration into the Imperium. Resistance is illogical and will result in unnecessary suffering. Surrender within 12 of your hours and your species will be permitted to exist as laborers within our empire. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why 400 civilizations have chosen compliance over extinction. The transmission ended, leaving 8 billion humans staring at screens in stunned silence. Government scrambled to respond. Emergency sessions convened in every capital city. Military forces mobilized, though everyone who understood the technology gap knew it was futile. Earth's most advanced spacecraft could barely reach their own moon. The alien vessels crossed interplanetary distances as easily as humans walked across a room. Humanity's greatest weapons were nuclear missiles that took hours to reach their targets. The aliens could probably destroy them with a thought. But something unexpected happened in those 12 hours. Humanity did not panic. They did not descend into chaos and riot. Instead, something ancient and primal awakened in the human spirit. A defiance that had carried their species through ice ages and plagues, through wars and disasters that should have ended them 100 times over. If the universe wanted humanity gone, it would have to pry Earth from their cold, dead fingers. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes sat in the cockpit of her fighter craft, one of 200 that comprised Earth's entire space combat wing. She had joined the Space Force because she loved flying, never truly believing she would face actual combat. Now she checked her weapon systems and thought about her daughter back home in Mexico City. Little Carmen was only 5 years old, too young to understand that her mother might not come home. Sophia recorded a message just in case, telling Carmen to be brave and strong, to never give up no matter how impossible things seemed. At the United Earth Command Center, General Okonkwo made a decision that would echo through history. She contacted every hacker, every engineer, every scientist who had ever been labeled too radical or too dangerous. I need weapons, she told them. I need ideas that break the rules. Conventional warfare is suicide against this enemy. So give me unconventional. Give me crazy. Give me anything that might work. Dr. Tanaka had already started. His team had noticed something peculiar about the alien ships. They generated massive energy signatures, but those signatures followed predictable patterns. It was like watching someone breathe. There were moments of inhale and exhale, brief windows when power fluctuated. We cannot destroy their shields, he explained to the military commanders. But maybe we can slip something through during the vulnerable moments. A virus, a computer worm, anything that disrupts their systems. The 12 hours passed. High Chancellor Vorum returned to human screens, expecting to see leaders ready to surrender. Instead, he saw General Okonkwo in her uniform, standing straight and proud. Your offer is rejected, she said simply. You want Earth? Come and take it. The first wave of alien ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling meteors. They were beautiful and terrible, sleek vessels that seemed to flow rather than fly. Energy weapons powered up with a sound like thunder, ready to demonstrate the cost of human defiance. They expected cities to burn, populations to flee in terror, military forces to crumble at the first show of overwhelming power. They had no idea what humanity had prepared. In bunkers deep beneath mountains, teams of programmers unleashed digital weapons into the alien network. In the asteroid belt, mining ships that had been hastily retrofitted with weapon systems waited in silent ambush. On Earth, millions of civilians armed themselves with whatever they could find, ready to fight street by street if necessary. Humanity had spent 12 hours preparing for war, and they had learned one crucial lesson from their own bloody history. Victory is not about having the best weapons or the strongest ships. Victory belongs to whoever is willing to pay the highest price, to sacrifice everything for what they believe in. The Celestial Imperium had conquered 400 worlds because those worlds chose survival over resistance. They calculated odds and made rational decisions to surrender rather than face extinction. Humanity, as the aliens were about to discover, had never been particularly rational. The alien warships descended like angels of destruction, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they positioned themselves over major population centers. High Chancellor Vorum had ordered a demonstration of power, something to break human resolve before the real invasion began. A single shot from orbit could vaporize entire cities. The Imperium had used this tactic successfully on dozens of worlds. Show overwhelming force, watch hope die in their eyes, then accept their surrender. But the shots never came. Lieutenant Sophia Reyes led her squadron through the upper atmosphere, her hands steady on the controls despite her racing heart. 200 fighters against 50,000 alien ships seemed like a cruel joke, but she had stopped calculating odds hours ago. Her targeting computer locked onto the nearest alien cruiser, a massive vessel that dwarfed her tiny craft by a factor of thousands. Dr. Tanaka's virus was loaded into a specialized missile, disguised as a conventional warhead. The aliens would see it coming and likely destroy it with their point defense systems, but that was the plan. She fired. The missile streaked toward the alien ship, and as predicted, defensive lasers obliterated it 3 kilometers from impact, debris scattered across space appearing harmless. What the aliens didn't know was that the debris contained millions of microscopic transmitters, each broadcasting Dr. Tanaka's virus on quantum frequencies. The virus didn't attack the alien systems directly. Instead, it simply listened and learned, mapping the network architecture of the Imperium fleet. Across the globe, similar attacks were happening simultaneously. Every human weapon launched was a delivery system for information gathering rather than destruction. The aliens swatted them aside effortlessly, growing more confident with each easy victory. This was exactly what General Okonkwo wanted them to feel. On the surface, Captain Devon Thrace had been recalled from the Prometheus station to lead ground forces in Seoul. The city had been evacuated except for military personnel and volunteers who refused to leave. He walked through empty streets that should have been filled with millions of people, and the silence was more terrifying than any battlefield he had experienced. His command post was a hastily fortified subway station, filled with soldiers who looked too young to be facing the end of the world. Private Jiwoo Park checked her rifle for the 100th time, a nervous habit that helped her focus. She had been a student 3 days ago, studying literature at the university. Now she wore combat armor and prepared to fight aliens with technology thousands of years beyond human understanding. "Do you think we have a chance?" she asked the sergeant beside her. Sergeant Malcolm Torres had fought in conflicts across 3 continents. He had seen desperate situations before, but nothing compared to this. Still, he smiled at the young private. "Kid, humans have survived everything the universe threw at us for 200,000 years. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, plagues that killed half our population. We're still here. These aliens are just another test. The Celestial Imperium ground forces began landing in major cities. Their soldiers were imposing figures, each one wearing powered armor that made them 3 meters tall. They carried weapons that could level buildings with a single shot. Standard Imperium doctrine called for immediate occupation of government centers and the capture of local leaders. Show the population their rulers kneeling in defeat, and resistance crumbles. They had clearly never fought humans before. The first alien squad to enter downtown Seoul found the streets empty but not abandoned. From windows and rooftops, from subway entrances and parking garages, humans opened fire. Their bullets couldn't penetrate alien armor, but they didn't need to. Every shot was a distraction, forcing the aliens to take cover, to slow their advance, to wonder what was coming next. And while they were distracted, other teams were moving into position. Private Park watched through her scope as an alien soldier approached her position. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. She had volunteered for this assignment specifically because she was small and quick. While the alien focused on the gunfire coming from the building across the street, she slipped from her hiding spot and attached a magnetic charge to the back of its armor. The explosive was barely powerful enough to scratch the alien's defenses, but it wasn't meant to kill. The charge detonated with a flash of light and a pulse of electromagnetic energy. The alien's armor systems flickered and died for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Sergeant Torres emerged from cover with a plasma cutter he had stolen from a construction site. The industrial tool designed to slice through steel beams found the weak points in the armor's joints. The alien fell, and suddenly the impossible became possible. They could be hurt. High Chancellor Vorum watched the battle reports with growing confusion. Human resistance should have collapsed within the first hour. Instead, it was intensifying. His soldiers reported bizarre tactics that made no strategic sense. Humans would sacrifice entire squads just to disable a single alien soldier. They used civilian equipment as weapons. They fought from positions that should have been death traps, then somehow escaped before his forces could retaliate. Dr. Tanaka sat in his underground laboratory, surrounded by screens showing data from thousands of combat encounters. The virus had done its job perfectly. Every alien ship, every piece of equipment, every communication system was now mapped in intricate detail. He could see the patterns in their technology, the rhythms of their power systems, the protocols of their command structure. "I have it," he announced to General Okonkwo over the secure channel. "I know how their systems work. But General, what I'm seeing is terrifying." Okonkwo leaned forward. "Explain." "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's rigid. Every ship follows the same operational patterns. Every soldier uses identical tactics. They've conquered 400 civilizations using the same playbook every time because it always works. They're not adapting to our resistance because they don't know how. They've never needed to adapt before." A slow smile crossed Okonkwo's face. "Then we teach them why adaptation matters." The counterattack began at dawn. Human forces had spent the night analyzing every piece of alien technology they could recover from the battlefield. They couldn't replicate it, couldn't even fully understand it, but they could learn enough to exploit its weaknesses. Maintenance engineer Hannah Osei had discovered that alien power cores operated on harmonic frequencies. Disrupt those frequencies, and the entire system went into automatic shutdown for 30 seconds while it recalibrated. She had built a device from spare parts and prayer, a frequency disruptor that weighed 40 kilograms and had to be carried within 10 meters of an alien vehicle to work. "It'll probably explode and kill whoever's carrying it," she admitted to Captain Thrace. "But if it works first, it'll give you a window to strike." Thrace looked at the crude device, then at the volunteers who had stepped forward to carry it. These were ordinary people, teachers and shopkeepers, students and retirees who had decided that dying for Earth was better than living under alien rule. "Humanity doesn't deserve people like you," he said quietly. "Sure we do," replied former teacher Robert Chen, strapping the device to his back. "We're all people like us. That's the secret the aliens don't understand. Every human is capable of this. We've just been lucky enough to live in peace long enough to forget." The device worked. When Chen triggered it near an alien transport, the massive vehicle simply stopped, its shields dropping as systems went into reset. For 30 precious seconds it was vulnerable. Human fighters swarmed it with rockets and explosives, and when the smoke cleared, the transport was a burning wreck. Chen didn't survive the explosion of his makeshift weapon, but across the city, 50 more volunteers were preparing identical devices. Sofia Reyes was back in space, her fighter's fuel gauge reading nearly empty. She had made 3 runs already, each time delivering more data-gathering missiles that had revealed another piece of the alien network. Now Dr. Tanaka had sent her coordinates for a final strike, and when she saw the target, her blood ran cold. He wanted her to attack High Chancellor Vorum's command ship directly. "This is suicide," she whispered. "All of this is suicide," came Tanaka's voice over the radio. "But Sophia, I found something. The command ship coordinates the entire fleet. Every ship takes orders from Vorum's vessel. If we can disrupt it, even for a few minutes, the whole fleet loses cohesion. They'll be confused, vulnerable." Sophia thought about Carmen, about the message she had recorded. Then she thought about the world her daughter would inherit if humanity surrendered. "Send me everything you have on their defense grid," she said, "and tell my baby girl that Mommy fought for her future." The approach to Vorum's flagship was a gauntlet of laser fire and missile barrages. Sophia flew like she had never flown before, instinct and desperation guiding her through impossible angles and near-miss explosions. Her fighter took hit after hit, systems failing one by one, but she kept flying. The virus missile launched from her last functional weapons bay, and this time it wasn't disguised as an attack. It was pure digital warfare. Everything Dr. Tanaka had learned about alien systems compressed into one devastating package. The missile struck the command ship's communication array and unleashed chaos into the Imperium network. For 17 seconds, every ship in the alien fleet lost contact with command authority. 17 seconds where there were no orders, no coordination, no unity of purpose. In those 17 seconds, humanity struck everywhere at once. Every weapon humanity possessed fired simultaneously. Every trap they had prepared sprang shut. Every desperate plan was executed. Sophia's fighter finally gave out, systems dying as she drifted through space. Through her cracked canopy, she watched as alien ships began firing on each other in the confusion, their automated defenses unable to distinguish friend from foe without command guidance. It was beautiful and terrible, and she closed her eyes knowing she had made a difference. But rescue came. A mining ship, retrofitted with emergency equipment, caught her fighter in a tractor beam and hauled her to safety. As they pulled her from the wreckage, the pilot grinned. "No hero dies today, Lieutenant. We're going to need every single one of us before this is over." The battle had raged for 3 days and Earth was burning. Cities lay in ruins, millions had died, and the alien fleet still controlled the skies. By every logical measure, humanity should have surrendered. The Celestial Imperium had committed additional forces, bringing their total strength to over 100,000 ships. General Okonkwo stared at casualty reports that made her want to weep, but she had no tears left. Only determination remained. High Chancellor Vorum was no longer confident. His species had evolved on a world of abundance, where conflict was resolved through superior technology and overwhelming force. The concept of a species that grew stronger through suffering was alien to him in the most fundamental way. He watched humans fight with damaged equipment, with improvised weapons, with their bare hands when nothing else remained. They should have been demoralized by their losses. Instead, each defeat seemed to fuel greater resistance. Private Jiwoo Park had survived the Battle of Seoul, though she carried wounds that would scar her forever. She had watched friends die, had killed enemies herself, and had discovered reserves of courage she never knew existed. Now she sat in a field hospital, writing in a journal that thousands of other soldiers were reading online. Her words spread through human networks, shared across the globe by people desperate for hope. "They think we're fighting for territory or resources," she wrote. "They don't understand that we're fighting for something they can't even comprehend. Every human who falls makes the rest of us more determined because we carry their dreams forward. My friend Michael died yesterday protecting a family he never met. He gave his tomorrow so they could have today. That's not weakness. That's not primitive thinking. That's humanity at its finest." Her words reached people in bunkers and shelters, in military bases and resistance camps. They reached Captain Devon Thrace as he planned another impossible defense. They reached Dr. Tanaka as he worked around the clock to find new vulnerabilities in alien systems. They reached children hiding in basements, terrified but holding on to hope, because if the soldiers hadn't given up, neither would they. The turning point came from an unexpected source. Dr. Tanaka had been so focused on alien technology that he almost missed the obvious solution staring him in the face. The Imperium ships were networked, sharing data constantly to maintain coordination. That network was their greatest strength but also their critical vulnerability. He didn't need to hack individual ships. He needed to poison the entire network with something they couldn't defend against. The weapon wasn't a virus or a traditional cyber attack. It was much simpler and far more devastating. It was Dr. Tanaka crafted a data package containing every moment of human resistance. Every impossible victory, every sacrifice, every time humans had achieved the unlikely through sheer determination. He showed alien soldiers dying despite their superior technology. He showed human warriors fighting on with wounds that should have killed them. He showed children comforting each other in ruins, already planning how they would rebuild. And he wrapped it all in a simple message transmitted on every frequency the Imperium used. You cannot defeat us because we have already decided we are undefeatable. Destroy our cities and we fight from the rubble. Kill our soldiers and civilians take up arms. Occupy our world and we will resist for generations. You have technology we cannot match, but we have something you will never understand. We have already survived the impossible just by existing. Humanity crawled out of caves to reach the stars. What makes you think we'll stop now? The message spread through the Imperium fleet like wildfire. Soldiers who had never questioned orders began to wonder if this conquest was worth dying for. Ship captains started calculating casualty rates and questioning whether the Imperium Council had underestimated their enemy. The network that had been the Imperium's strength became a conduit for uncertainty. High Chancellor Vorim tried to suppress the message, but it was too late. His own officers were looking at him with doubt in their eyes. Chancellor, his second-in-command said carefully, we have lost 12,000 ships. Entire battalions have been wiped out by primitives using improvised weapons. The humans are now boarding our vessels and taking them from the inside. Yesterday, a cargo ship was captured by 20 humans armed with tools stolen from a mining facility. This is unprecedented. Vorim knew what was coming. The Imperium had strict protocols for campaigns that exceeded acceptable losses. When conquest became too costly, they withdrew and marked the world as too dangerous for integration. But admitting defeat to primitives would damage the Imperium's reputation across the galaxy. 400 conquered civilizations would start asking questions. If humans could resist, why couldn't they? The decision was made in the council chambers aboard Vorim's flagship. They would make one final assault, commit everything they had to breaking human resistance. If it succeeded, Earth would fall. If it failed, they would retreat and never speak of this failure again. The surviving councilors voted, their confidence shaken but their pride demanding one last attempt. General Okonkwo received intelligence about the coming attack from sources she didn't fully understand. Captured alien soldiers were defecting, providing information about Imperium plans in exchange for protection. The cultural contamination was spreading faster than any military victory could achieve. They're going to hit us with everything, she told her commanders. This is the moment we've been fighting toward. We hold now, or we lose everything. The final battle began at dawn on the 7th day of the invasion. Every functional human ship, every weapon system, every soldier capable of fighting took position. They had learned so much in a week of desperate combat. They knew alien tactics now, understood their weaknesses, could predict their strategies. More importantly, they had discovered something about themselves. Humanity had always been at its best when facing extinction. Something in the human spirit refused to accept the inevitable. They had survived ice ages by learning to make fire. They had survived plagues by inventing medicine. They had survived every disaster through adaptation and determination. The aliens were just another disaster, and humanity would adapt again. Sophia Reyes flew her 4th fighter of the week, this one hastily patched together from 3 destroyed craft. Her original squadron of 200 had been reduced to 47 functional ships, but they flew like veterans of 100 campaigns now. They had learned to read alien formation patterns, to exploit the brief moments of vulnerability in shield systems, to coordinate strikes with precision that belied their primitive technology. The alien assault was massive and coordinated. Thousands of ships descended toward Earth, weapons blazing, determined to scour the planet of resistance once and for all. They encountered a defense that should have been impossible. Humans fought from space stations and orbit platforms, from atmospheric fighters and ground-based installations. They used every trick, every adaptation, every lesson learned through blood and sacrifice. Captain Thrace led a ground assault that would become legendary. His team had captured an alien landing craft in the previous days and spent every spare moment learning to pilot it. Now they flew that captured ship directly into the Imperium formation, broadcasting false identification codes that Dr. Tanaka had extracted from the network. They got within 50 meters of a command carrier before anyone realized the deception. By then, Thrace and his soldiers had already boarded the enemy ship. What followed was brutal close-quarters combat in corridors designed for beings twice their size. Humans used their smaller stature to advantage, moving through maintenance ducts and ventilation systems that aliens couldn't access. They attacked from unexpected angles, used captured weapons they barely understood, fought with a ferocity that shocked their opponents. Sergeant Torres fell in that battle, dying while holding a bulkhead door open so his squad could escape. Private Park honored him by leading the charge that captured the ship's bridge, her literature degree forgotten as she became a warrior. The battle lasted 19 hours. When it ended, Earth was still free. High Chancellor Vorum sat in his command chair staring at reports that chronicled the impossible. Humanity had held. More than that, they had inflicted casualties the Imperium could not sustain. 28,000 ships lost. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers dead or captured. Entire battalions refusing orders because they no longer believed in the mission. The network he had relied on had become his enemy, spreading doubt and fear faster than any weapon. The order came from the Imperium Council. Withdraw immediately. Classify all records of the Earth campaign. Never speak of this failure. The humans had won not through superior technology or tactics, but through something the Imperium couldn't comprehend. They had won because they refused to lose. As the alien fleet began its retreat, jumping to faster-than-light speeds and disappearing into the depths of space, humanity watched from their battered world. General Okonkwo stood among the ruins of what had been the United Earth Command Center, now just rubble and determination. Around her, soldiers who should have been dead stood tall. Civilians who should have fled picked through wreckage looking for survivors. And children who should have been playing drew pictures of the ships they would someday build to chase the aliens back to their homeworlds. Dr. Tanaka approached her, exhausted but smiling. We did it. We actually did it. No, Okonkwo corrected him gently. We became what we needed to be. Humanity always does. Sophia Reyes landed her fighter for the last time, the craft literally falling apart around her as she touched down. She climbed from the cockpit to find Carmen waiting, having escaped the evacuation and traveled across a war zone to find her mother. They embraced while Earth burned around them, and Sophia realized the truth. Humanity hadn't won the war. They had proven that some species cannot be conquered because they carry victory in their very nature. The scars would take generations to heal. Cities would need rebuilding. Millions had died, and their loss carved holes in humanity's heart that would never fully close. But they had learned something precious in those 7 days of hell. They had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or strategy, or even courage. It was the simple, stubborn refusal to give up no matter the odds. Young Jiwoo Park, who would later become Ambassador Park of the United Earth Coalition, wrote one final entry in her journal that night. They came expecting to find primitives. They found something the universe had never seen before. They found a species that turns suffering into strength, that transforms defeat into determination, that looks at impossible odds and simply asks, how do we win anyway? They broke our cities but not our spirit. They killed our people but not our hope. They wanted to conquer Earth, but what they got was a lesson that will echo across the galaxy. Humanity doesn't fight to win. We fight because losing is unacceptable. We fight because surrender is not in our nature. We fight because that's what humans do. And now the universe knows we're here. The stars still watched Earth, but they watched with new respect now. Humanity had announced themselves to the cosmos not with words of peace or declarations of friendship, but with defiance and determination. They had shown the galaxy what happens when you threaten their home. The Celestial Imperium would remember Earth, would warn other species to avoid that small blue planet where impossible things happened with disturbing regularity. And humanity looked to those stars with new eyes, knowing they were no longer alone, knowing that dangers lurked in the darkness between worlds. But they also knew something the aliens had learned too late. Humanity had been forged in fire, tested by disasters, tempered by struggles that should have destroyed them. They were survivors, fighters, dreamers who refused to accept limitations. The universe had sent its warriors to conquer Earth, Earth had shown them that some battles cannot be won with weapons or technology. Some species carry within them a spark that cannot be extinguished, a defiance that grows stronger with each challenge faced. Humanity had that spark, and now the galaxy would have to reckon with what that meant. In the ruins of Seoul, in the ash-covered streets of New York, in the bombed-out cities across every continent, humans began rebuilding. They mourned their dead, honored their heroes, and planned for a future among the stars, because that's what humans do. They endure, they adapt, they overcome, and they never ever give up. The invasion was over, but humanity's story was just beginning. They had broken the universe's laws not through technology or power, but by refusing to accept what the universe said was possible, and that refusal, that fundamental human stubborn determination, would reshape the galaxy in ways no one could yet imagine. The stars watched and waited to see what humanity would do next. But whatever it was, the universe had been warned. Humanity was no longer a hidden species on an unimportant world. They were survivors of the impossible, warriors who had defended their home against overwhelming odds. They were something new and fierce and utterly unprecedented. They were humanity unbound, and the cosmos would never be the same.